Notion and Google Calendar, they exist in parallel universes and are completely disconnected from each other. This means that you cannot use your Notion as the single point of truth where both your life and business are located. So things fall through the cracks, and worst of all, you need to shuffle through tabs. Notion, Google Calendar, Notion, Google Calendar, until today, because in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make them friends forever.
And I love any version of you.
In today's video, I'm going to show you 4 different ways you can sync Google Calendar with Notion. The first one is importing all of your existing Google Calendar events to Notion in just a few minutes. The second one will allow you to sync Google Calendar to Notion so that when you make a change in one app, then the change reflects in the other app automatically. The third automation will allow you to embed your Google Calendar to Notion with some limitations. And finally, the fourth one will allow you to create triggered automations so that you can do pretty much anything with both Notion and Google Calendar. And let's take a look at the first automation that will import all of your data from Google Calendar from years back directly to Notion. It's important to note that you need to run this action only once, and all of the data is going to be there in Notion, but none of the data is going to be synced. We're going to address those things in the two-way sync section and in the triggered automation section to fix that, so do not worry about it for now. We're going to be using the workflow automation tool called Bardeen.ai. It's a Chrome extension that you can download by going to the link in the description below. So here I have it downloaded and I have the Notion page open. Bardeen is over there. And the first thing you need is obviously your calendar database in Notion. If you do not have one, you are in luck, because you can check out the Notion Automation Hub, where we have compiled the most useful automations for Notion and templates. So just go to the automate-notion.com, click on download for free, then hit duplicate. And that's all it takes. Feel free to check out the meetings automations, or you can go to templates and databases directly and find the calendar template. Here it is. Let's drag it to our side panel. We can delete the original page over here, and here is our Google Calendar template. Now let's import data from Google Calendar to this database. You can launch Bardeen from anywhere in your browser, so let's launch it from here. Click here and let's create a new automation. It's going to have just 2 actions. The first one is going to find all of the events in your Google Calendar, and the second one will create those events in Notion. So click on the plus icon, find Google Calendar. Let's integrate it really quick. Pick the account, check, continue. And there we have it. On the side panel, you're going to see Google Calendar. Let's find the action that's called find events. And we can filter events that want to find in different ways. It can be by name or it can be by starting date. I can find events from, say, 2 years ago. So this is the date range. Say 2 years in the future. Or it can be in 2 years, just like this. Hit done, and this action will find all of the events within that date range. Now want to add new events to our Notion database. So hit new action, and now let's integrate Notion. Hit the plus icon, add Notion, install it. Make sure that you've picked the right workspace, hit select pages, give access to this specific calendar database, allow access, and boom, just like this, we've integrated Notion. You can find it on the side panel. Let's create pages in Notion in the calendar database. And here you'll need to click on this icon to map the data that comes from the Google Calendar action to Notion. So here we have the name. In Google Calendar, it's called summary. Have the calendar link. We have the meeting link. We have the date, start date over here, and let's add the status. And finally, the description. Hit done, save this automation. Let's call it gcal to Notion. Save it, and you can now close the builder and run the automation. So I'm going to collapse the window so you can see it. The events show up over here. Let's go a month back over here. And there were some pre-built template events, which I'm going to delete right here. Option B shortcut to open the extension, and let's run it. And just like this, here we have all of our events, 106 events, imported with just one click to Notion. Let's check out those events. Scroll back in time, and here they are. The events. Let's click on one of them. And here you have the meeting link. You have the calendar link. You have the status of the meeting. You have the date. So if you click on the calendar link, there it is. All right, so the first automation allowed us to import all of our existing data from Google Calendar to Notion. Now, what if you want to make an exact replica of your Google Calendar events in Notion? And it doesn't stop there. What if you want to get changes that are made in one app to reflect in the other? This is exactly what two-way sync does, and we're going to be taking a look at the automation tool that makes it all possible. It's called notionautomations.com. Before we dive into it, there are a few things that you need to know ahead of time. First of all, it's a paid tool. Second is that syncing is not instant, so it's going to take around 5 minutes for the changes to be reflected in the other app. And finally, the tool only sync events 3 months ahead of time and a few months back. And now let's set it up. So let's go to notionautomations.com over here and start syncing. The way you log in is by connecting your calendar. So let's connect the calendar, pick the same calendar over here, hit continue. And here you can pick the calendars that you want to sync. I'm going to click continue from here. You can duplicate their template if you want. So let's try it out. Let's duplicate the template. And there we have it. We have the agenda, different views by day, monthly view, and somewhere inside calendar, I believe they'll have the source database hidden. I think this might be it. All right, so let's connect Notion. Hit connect Notion. Let's connect Notion. You repeat the exact same steps as you did with Bardeen. Okay, so here we want to, again, give access to the calendar databases. Now you need to paste the database link here. So let's go to Notion and find that Notion database. So there we have it. Click on share and let's copy the link. Go to the first tab, paste the data here. And it looks like it's the wrong link, so let's go back to our Notion space over here. Make sure that this is the place, I believe it is. Make sure that we have it shared. I'm going to try to copy this link one more time. I think it might be the link to the view as opposed to the database. This is what we did last time. So I'm just going to click on this database and try to copy the link one more time. Hit save. And watch the magic happen. Let's hit continue. And here's the really cool part. There are some events that you can exclude from this sync. For example, I have recurring events that are my morning routine, my daily routine when I go to sleep. So I generally want to exclude those events. So let's hit yes. And you can say events that are all day events, for example, or you can say recurring events, which are my daily routine events in my case. Let's hit continue. And here comes another cool bonus. So you can have your Notion page to show up in Google Calendar. So I'm going to show you exactly what this means. So let's go to Google Calendar right now and find a random event, such as this one, Lunch with Tim Cook, over here. And what's going to happen is that the page is going to be added to the description of this event. I'm super excited to see this work. Let's go back to Notion automations, say yes, absolutely, and let's test the sync. And it looks like the test sync will only get the data from this week and a few weeks ahead. And I don't think I have in my calendar events for then. So let me change the dates so we can do testing properly. Instead of March, let's go May. I'm going to do another event. Let's do this one. And let's change the event into the future. Don't send the invitation. Hit on today, and here we have two events that I believe supposed to sync no problem. Back to Notion automations, try synchronization. Boom! Here we have it. So we can go to Notion. Let's hit Notion. And there's the event with all of my data, which is pretty cool. And we can view this event in Google Calendar as well. There it is. And there's a part that's called Notes. And here you have the meeting notes, which you can open directly from Google Calendar. How awesome it is. Let's go to this calendar view, and we have those two events synced up over there. See the list view. Yeah, we had a few more. So here are our two events. So, okay, how can we get the entire calendar synced? And in order for us to do this, we need to pay $5 a month or $50 a year to make all of this happen. So if you're serious in bringing all of your data to Notion, this is probably a great investment. And the third type of integration is simply embedding your Google Calendar inside Notion. A few things that you need to know before you actually try it out is, number one, you will need to make your Google Calendar public. So if you're sensitive about people seeing your data, then it might not be the best option. And second, which is the most important to me, you cannot actually make changes to any of the events. You can just view the data that's already in Google Calendar. If you want to make changes, you need to go to Google Calendar and update all of the data there. But it can be still a great option if you use Notion as your public website. Maybe you're a yoga teacher and you want to publish a list of classes, or you have a bunch of public events that you want your attendees to know about. In this case, embedding Google Calendar to Notion can actually work. Let's go ahead and set this up. So here we have our Notion page. Let's call it Embedded Cal. And we're going to open in a separate tab our Google Calendar. So calendar.google.com. Click on the gear icon and open settings. You need to pick the calendar that you want to embed. So in my case, it's Demo Bardeen. Now I want to make the calendar public. By default, this option is disabled. So hit enable, say yes, I'm aware that my calendar is going to be public and people with the link will be able to see it. Scroll down and you will see this embed code, the iframe. Let's copy it and let's go back to Notion over here. Let's use the / command and let's get the embedded block. Here you can paste the iframe, embedded link. Let's make it bigger. And here you have all of your data. Here we have the two events, so you can view the data just like this. There are different views. There's the day view, the month view, and the week view. And that's all it takes to embed Google Calendar to Notion. It's that easy. If you think about it, Notion Calendar is just a database with a view. Unlike Google Calendar that allows you to send invitations and to do a bunch of other things, you cannot really do anything other than view information. And this is exactly where triggered automations come in. You can create a trigger and an action that allows you to do things that Google Calendar can do and Notion by default cannot. not. There are a few tools that integrate with Notion and make triggered automations possible. Bardeen, Zapier, Make.com, and a few others. Let's take a look at how you can create those triggered automations with Bardeen. So just like before, here we have the Notion calendar database, and I can open Bardeen from here. Click on create new playbook, and if you find the Notion app, here we have a list of Notion triggers. When Notion page is updated, or when Notion page is created or updated, or when it's just created. So those are the triggers. You can say, hey, when Notion page is created in a database, so when you create a new Notion calendar event, so calendar database, then you can go ahead and add another action. For example, you can send an email, and here in the recipient argument, you can input a recipient. It can be yourself, it can be somebody else, and you input the subject line, new event is created, just like this. Pick the recipient, let me do the demo account. You can CC somebody, BCC somebody, and here's the body of your email. So you can write some information over here and even send the link to this Notion page. So here we have the URL variable. I'm going to hit done, and we can test this automation. So let's click save and say send email when Notion page is created. Hit save one more time, close it, and it's very important to enable this automation so that it actually runs. And from here, we're going to create a new page in the calendar. Let's call it demo for a video. Let's close it here. Let's open Gmail. Boom, and just like this, here we have the email with the link to the page. It's important to know that it might take a few minutes for the trigger to run. And if you want to disable it, open Bardeen and toggle this automation off. So now if you're not using the two-way sync automation app, you can use a trigger for when a Google Calendar event is updated to make the updates happen in Notion, or vice versa. Make sure not to create an infinite loop, because that's not going to help and make anything work. And let's recap. We've taken a look at 4 different automations to sync Google Calendar with Notion. The first one allowed us to import all of our existing data from Google Calendar to Notion. The second automation allowed us to sync the events a few months ahead, so that when you make a change in Google Calendar or in Notion, it's going to be reflected in the other app. Then we embedded a Google Calendar inside Notion. Again, you cannot make changes inside Google Calendar embed, but you can see all of the data, which is useful if you use Notion as your public website where you want to display information. And finally, we've taken a look at triggered automations that have a trigger and an action, so that if you're using only Notion as your default calendar, you can create some cool automations that can send email reminders, embed a link to a Notion page inside Google Calendar, and much more. For more productivity hacks and ways to automate your life and your business, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Cheers.